Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello from show number 166 for the 23rd of December 2011. Richard Saunders here with you from, well, a disappointing Sydney, Australia. If you like summer, that is. It's been overcast and raining and cool all month. All month, folks. So like global warming in reverse. Oh well. Could be worse. I'm sure January will be lovely and warm and we can all get down to the beach. But for this show, for this episode of the Skeptic Zone, what do we have lined up for you? I catch up with a good friend of the Skeptic Zone, Brian Dunning from Skeptoid, the Skeptoid podcast, where he's going to chat about little things like the moving rocks of Death Valley and his projects involving videos and a recent award he won. Always good to catch up with Brian Dunning. After that, we've got a segment from Perth Radio, Perth here in Western Australia. Announcer Jason Jordan interviews our reporter and president of the Australian Skeptics here in New South Wales, Eran Sergev. Jason was very interested to find out what skepticism is all about, and, Eran was happy to tell him. That interview coming up in the middle of the show. And to round off the show, we have Maynard back again. Maynard wraps up his Australian Skeptics National Convention's interviews with an interview with Jason Ball from the Young Australian Skeptics, conducted aboard our floating restaurant at Darling Harbour after the convention at the dinner. And if that's not enough, after that, Eran Sergev turns the microphones on Maynard and interviews him. Now, I must say a big thank you to everybody who put in a bid for the signed CD from Maynard, Maynard's Classics, and the Skeptoid 3 book, and as it turned out, the poster from the recent Committee for Skeptical Inquiry Convention in New Orleans. Thanks very much, and I posted those goodies plus a few more surprises off to the lucky winner a few days ago. Congratulations, and thank you. Thank you for pitching in and helping Maynard. That's the goal, folks. We're going to get Maynard to TAM 10 next year, and I'm thrilled to say that we have reached the halfway point in the funds we need. So there's no doubt in my mind we'll get there. Absolutely sure of that. With your help. With your help, we'll certainly get there. And I think we'll have another auction very soon. Some more skeptical goodies and memorabilia coming up. And before we get stuck into the show, a reminder to visit skepticzone.tv and see the links and information there. And also to click on our blog, which is Dr. Rachel's blog, The Skeptic's Book of Poo-Poo, to keep up to date with what Rachel's getting into at the moment. Anti-vaxxers, no doubt. All right. What is eggnog? What the hell is egg? We don't have eggnog here. What is it? An egg and a nog? I'm going to run downstairs. I'm going to look in the cupboard, see if I have some eggnog. What do you do? Put it in the microwave? Do you freeze it? Do you warm it over the oven? Do you shake it? Maybe you have it with vodka. Maybe I should Google it. All right. Well, I'm doing that. We can all enjoy this week's episode of The Skeptic Zone. And joining me on the line from beautiful Orange County in beautiful California in the wonderful United States, it's the mediocre Brian Dunning.
From Skeptoid.com.
That's the man. Brian, good to catch up with you for this end-of-the-year sort of roundup chat about skeptical matters.
Skeptical matters, indeed, yes.
And speaking of sort of skeptical matters, I happen to know that you were the recipient very recently of an award for your wonderful online video, Here Be Dragons.
Yes, Here Be Dragons, which I made actually back in 2008 with extremely limited budget and no release. Obviously, it's just there on the internet for whoever wants to find it. And it's kind of been constantly growing in those 3 years ever since. More and more people are emailing me about it. Teachers saying that they use it in schools. And then a few months ago, I got an email from the Portland Humanist Film Festival, and they had selected it for, I believe they called it the Independent Juried Award.
Wow.
Which was up in Portland, Oregon, last month. And so they flew me up there and hosted me, and I had a great time. What a wonderful little film festival it is. And Portland is such a neat little city, Portland, Oregon. It was raining all the time, and there was a Occupy Portland protests and clashes with riot police going on. So it was really, really a fun time.
I'm sorry I couldn't have joined you for that. I think I would have sincerely enjoyed that, because I've been to Oregon and I found it a wonderful place. But congratulations again, because I find myself watching that video since it came out, maybe at least once a year, just to refresh myself on some of the ideas. And you have a wonderful part in it, which was the very first Skeptoid podcast about energy, and I'm constantly having to tell people what energy is, or at least say to them, now when you talk about energy, what do you mean? And they said, they'll normally say something like, well, everything's made from energy, and it's all around us, and we all vibrate. And I'm going head desk.
That's as good a definition as I've heard.
But thanks to your Here Be Dragons and, of course, the very first episode of Skeptoid, at least I've got a much better understanding. And indeed, you covered this topic, New Age energy, or the topic of energy, what is energy, in one of your nice little, quick and insightful In Fact videos, which are also available online.
Yes, it's kind of been it's kind of a big several months of video for me. Not only was there Here Be Dragons at the film festival, which I got to see on the big screen for the first time, because This was in a real theater. That was something else. But yeah, the In Fact series of videos, I'm kind of a little bit past midway in season 2, I guess the most recent video was, I'm on the website right now, was environmental toxins. These are the neat thing about these videos is I make them specifically for the YouTube audience, which, as we know, is an audience that's not necessarily well-versed in scientific matters. So environmental toxins is designed to be just a kind of quick 3-minute distilled answer to how you should consider these stories in the news. We're constantly being exposed to these scare stories where poisons are found in the drinking water. Poisons are found in your baby food. Everything, anything and everything. And so environmental toxins in this episode, I just kind of give basically the easy examples, the easily grasped and understood examples of how everything is a poison and how everything is dangerous. It depends completely upon the dose. There's no such thing between something that's always, no such thing as something that's always poisonous. There's no such thing as something that's always safe. So I try to make these videos for the YouTube audience, which I think is a very worthy goal.
And of course, the only reason you can indeed make these videos, or if you get down to the pointy end of the argument, get Skeptoid out, is because your fans and well-meaning people actually chip in, and let people like you and me do what we want to do and produce this stuff.
Yeah, yes, the Skeptoid podcast is very nearly a full-time job for me, so that's completely supported by listener donations. So there's advertising on the website and a few things like that, but that's drop in the bucket. It's 99% listener donations. And the In Fact videos are 100% viewer funded. There's a little thermometer on the website, and every time the thermometer gets filled, I make a new episode. And so the next one, which is on conspiracy theories, that thermometer is 90% full right now, and probably will be 100% full by the time this episode comes out. But if anyone wants to see where that thermometer is, come to infactvideo.com and click on support.
I think it's good for people to realize, and I try to remind my listeners whenever I can. I don't want to go overboard doing it, but yes, when they chip in and contribute, and some people are very generous and send in amounts of money, that they can see or hear, maybe more importantly, they can hear what that money goes to. For my part, it certainly goes right into production and getting people here and there and getting the show out. And for your part, it means that they can sit back week after week after week and enjoy their 10 minutes of Skeptoid.
Like me, I'm sure you often get emails from people saying, how can I help? What can I do to help promote skepticism? This is the easiest thing, because there's lots of guys like me and you who are spending full-time or virtually full-time trying to produce this content. And, I'm certainly past the point where I can continue making Skeptoid for free, and I don't. I make it based on the tiny number of subscriptions that come creeping through the door. A lot of people are still out there thinking, hey, other people are donating, I don't need to. That's not the case. We do need more help, but it is really an easy way for everyone to make a meaningful contribution without having to spend a lot of time or come up with some new project or try and compete in iTunes and all this noise that's out there. So it really is, projects like this are a way to really bring the community together and produce some, hopefully, high-quality content that's going to do some good out in the world.
Well, it's a classic case of many hands make light work, and indeed when people chip in $1 a week or whatever it was, you don't notice that. However, it can turn into certainly a meaningful thing. But that's all very good, and I'm pleased that people are helping people like you and me produce and do what we want to do. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for any of the Skeptic Zone listeners who also support Skeptoid. Thank you very, very much. It means everything.
And vice versa, I must say. I like to think that people hear their latest, they get their latest Skeptoid fix every week, and then press the button and get their latest Skeptic Zone, and then they have to sit for a week. Or the best part of the week, what am I going to do? I can't wait for the next episode to come out.
Oh, I know. People are always telling me, hey, I downloaded 50 episodes and I listened to 6 of them at a time when I'm driving to work or something like that. It's like, I need more. I'm like, well, I'm doing my best.
Now, I had some really great feedback recently about the episode where you and I visited Death Valley, and we were out there on the salt plain at the place which is really far below sea level. I just can't think of it.
Badwater.
Thank you, Badwater. And I had quite a few emails from people saying how much they appreciated the fact that we recorded a little bit right on scene, as it were, sort of helping them or inviting them almost to be on our little trip with us. And I must say, and I tell everybody I meet, and people who want to listen to me and people who don't want to listen to me and strangers in the street, what a great, incredible place Death Valley is. And it's one of the places that must be in anybody's to-do list, bucket list, or what have you. And you lucky man, you get to go there quite often.
I'm about 4 or 5 hours drive away, which, in California distance, that's not all that much. And I go there every time I get an excuse.
Yeah.
So any listeners from out of town, if you're ever in Southern California and you want to see Death Valley, give me a call. More than likely, I'll take you there. And Richard, the 3 days that you and I were there, I mean, we saw just a fraction of it. I mean, I had to plan the quickest and dirtiest route possible to catch just a few of the highlights in one sweep through. But we could have spent weeks there and not run out of things to see that were just as amazing as all the places we did go.
Well, I was staggered, but at the end of the 3 days, it was I couldn't take it all in. Everything we did, from the Badwater to we encountered snow. In the one day, we encountered snow and a sandstorm, and scenery ever changing. And of course, the highlight of the trip was going to the racetrack to see the marvelous giant moving rocks, which really do move. Although you don't see them move, but you can certainly see their tracks. And of course, one of the classic comment from visiting that spot is, I actually went to a world mystery spot where something really happens.
That's the neat thing about it, is because something actually does happen there. And we had this conversation on the way. If you go to a haunted house or something like that, and you bring your video camera, I'm going to get some cool video of what? Of course, you go to a haunted house or something, nothing happens. And you go to the racetrack, you're not going to see them move, but you can see that the evidence of them moving because the rocks, they've all leave these great obvious tracks in the mud.
Yes.
So you actually get to go to a place where something actually happens. That's something that's all too rare in the whole kind of, spooky paranormal world.
It is. It is. You go to look for Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, you can sit there for a year with your camera and nothing will happen. You go to this place, there they are. These wonderful, incredible, big. I was surprised at the size of some of these rocks, these big moving rocks.
Yeah, me too.
And
I've been there before, and I don't walk as far out as we went this time. And there's lots of smaller rocks out toward the edges, kind of the first mile or so. But yeah, you go all the way across to where you and I went. There's some big ones.
Boy, and we certainly felt the biting, unbelievably biting cold wind that day. That was just incredible.
And, of course, that cold weather that you get there on the racetrack, that's a large part of why the rocks move.
Now, I'm trying to visualize. You've come up with a very good reason as to why these rocks probably move, and it has to do with ice and wind, doesn't it?
Yeah, when I was there, 2002, something like that. I'm not sure the date. About then, it was absolutely freezing, but it was a little bit later in the year. It was after there had been some snow melt, and the racetrack is quite high up in elevation, even though it's this flat, dry mud lake bed. You think of it something down at sea level, but it's not. It's quite high, and you get snow up there. And when the snow melts and runs down onto the racetrack, you get a lake. And in the winter, it can be extremely windy up there. And when it's below freezing and it's windy, you have these huge sheets of ice forming across the top of this lake. And the wind pushes the whole lake and pushes the sheet of ice across the mud flats. And that was something that I had no expectation of seeing. It was a complete surprise to me. And there's video of that on YouTube. Yeah, Richard, you put in your show notes. You can put a link to that video on YouTube of the ice sheet moving across the lake if people want to see that. It was really something to see this whole lake moving at just about a walking speed. And of course, wind and mud, that doesn't have horsepower to pick up a rock that's stuck in the mud and start it moving along. But a sheet of ice, well, just think of a glacier. A sheet of ice can move whatever the heck it wants to move, no matter how much that rock weighs. And that's exactly what happens, and it's really something else to see it. So,
are you saying that the water will come into the area, be it by snow or snow melt? Will it freeze around the rocks, or will the rocks encounter the leading edge of a movement of ice?
I think both happen.
Right.
Certainly both happen, in fact, because when I was there was rocks out in the water and there was rocks in the path of where this lake was moving to. And you know that from being there, we see rocks that their path will go out one direction and then it'll come back in the direction it came from. And they'll go two different directions nearby each other.
Yeah.
And it's fairly clear watching these sheets of ice as they break up and they get pushed across the surface of this moving lake. It's not all one uniform motion. It's little bits and pieces going here and there. And, of course, in the afternoon, when the wind changes direction, the sheet of ice comes right back again and is either going to push, nudge, or drag any rocks that are caught in it.
And it crossed our mind, or it certainly crossed my mind when I was there. I thought, well, why don't we just set up a tent, Brian, here for a couple of weeks, and we can wait and see it really happening. But it is severe there, isn't it? It's not like you can just set up a tent and sit back with a campfire and have a cup of tea and wait for these things to happen. It's bitter. It's bitter conditions.
Yeah, I think I really do want to plan a trip to get out there and see it, but it's not going to be set up a tent and wait for a week. It's you go there when the conditions are likely to be good, and you spend one night there, and you kind of get in and out. That's what I'm planning to do.
Death Valley, folks. Again, I can't recommend it enough. You can't see it all in a day or 2 days or a week or whatever it is. There are places to stay. I sound like a tourism ad for national parks in California, don't I? But it really is a wonderful place.
After I came back from Tam, Australia, I sounded exactly like you when I'm telling people about the Uluru and the Olgas. So,
Now, Brian, what we hope is going to happen in 2012 before the end of the world is there's certainly enough interest here in Australia to look at getting you back out, flying you back out and doing a little tour. And what I'd like to do right now is put it to our listeners here in Australia, in the capital cities, and maybe some of the bigger regional ones. If we can get Brian Dunning out here, would you like to see him talk and maybe do a double act with yours truly, maybe a double bill, a double skeptical talk, sometime in 2012? I'm sure you'd be interested in that, Brian.
I would love to do that. I had so much fun on that trip, and I've got some great new shows that I've been giving out here that are a lot of fun. As something I would love to bring to the Australian audience. I think it's one of the places I've been where I had more fun and really felt a connection with the people. So I'd love to come back and do a tour of Australia. Well,
there we are, folks. If you're interested, or you can help out, or you've got some ideas, please drop a line to richard@skepticzone.tv. Let me know what you think, and hopefully, maybe a bit later in 2012, we can arrange for a tour, a skeptical tour with Brian Dunning. Wouldn't that be exciting? Brian, I hope that you have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year, and I will be seeing you very early in the New Year. I'll drop by for a visit. Can't wait to get back into the hot tub of truth.
That might be a good time to plan that Death Valley trip as well.
Look, any excuse to get back there. Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Have you heard about QED? The exciting Skeptical Conference, 10th and 11th of March 2012.
Quite exciting days.
You're probably wondering, why should I go to QED?
Quasi-existential dilemma.
We'll have the investigator and legend Joe Nickell.
Quite extraordinary detective.
Alternative medicine expert Edzard Ernst.
Quacks endure difficulties.
Monsters, werewolves and lucid dreaming from Deborah Hyde.
Quirky, eerie demons.
Massimo Polidoro, head of the Italian Skeptic.
Questo egregio dottore.
David Aranovich and conspiracy theories.
Quite easily debunked.
Secular campaigner Mariam Namazi.
Quell equality detractors.
Sarah Anglis will show us how to play the theremin with robots.
Quivering electronic devices.
Ufologist Ian Ridpath.
Quiz extraterrestrial details.
Professor Steve Jones and why creationism is nonsense.
Quiet and evolution deniers.
Podcaster and spoonbender Richard Saunders.
Questions ESP demonstrations.
Author Ophelia Benson.
Queen existentialist debater.
And we'll have comedy from Robin Ince and guests.
Quality entertainment, definitely.
Tickets are £89 and they're going fast, so hurry.
Queue everybody directly.
Could you cut that out? You can get your ticket from QEDcon.org.
Quote event domain?
Marsh, seriously, if you don't stop that, I'm going to have to hurt you.
Quickly end discussion.
Come to QED Manchester.
Question, explore, discover.
Eran Sergev joins us, President of the Australian Skeptics. Hi, Eran.
Hello, Jason.
Eran, Australian Skeptics, what as an organisation are you guys all about? I mean, are you guys as an organisation just focused on things that you don't believe in?
No, skepticism in the modern sense is all about seeking evidence. So, yes, it is about not believing, but it is also about searching for evidence for things, especially when people make claims that seem a bit dubious or hard to believe. We look for the evidence for those claims, and very often we don't find the evidence, or we find that the evidence is non-existent, but other times we find evidence and things that seem strange are actually true.
So I guess really another way of naming the Australian Skeptics would be the Australian empiricists.
That's true. Skepticism, in the modern sense, is at the basis of science. Every scientist, every good scientist anyway, is a skeptic by the very nature of their job. They have to look for evidence. They have to assume things are not true unless they find the evidence to support the claim.
Now, Eran, the primary reason that I asked for you to come on the show this afternoon is an article that appeared on perthnow.com.au, and I'll just read you out the first couple of paragraphs. I did read this out a little bit earlier for our listeners. Alternative medicine is unethical, criminal, and likely contributed to the death of Apple boss Steve Jobs, according to visiting Professor Edzard Ernst. The world's first professor of complementary medicine was in Adelaide yesterday to speak at the Australasian Pharmaceutical Science Association conference at Uni SA. Famous for causing an uproar when in July he labelled Prince Charles a snake oil salesman for his dandelion and detox remedy, Professor Ernst yesterday spoke of the dangers of unproven complementary medicine. Now, what's the Australian Skeptics' thoughts on things like homeopathy and aromatherapy and all of those sorts of alternative and complementary medicines?
Well, we like to call them alternative to medicine rather than alternative medicine.
Okay.
Because it makes when you call them alternative medicine, it sounds like it's medicine. The reality is that the reason all of these things are complementary and not considered to be part of scientific medicine is because there is no sufficient evidence to support them. Now, there are varying degrees of quackery. For example, homeopathy cannot actually work. It's not just that it doesn't work. It cannot work unless everything we know about chemistry and physics and biology, it's all not true.
But, I mean, surely some of the homeopathy, though, has a placebo effect, and in that way it does actually work.
Oh, absolutely. But people very often say, well, why not give it as a placebo? But that raises all kinds of interesting questions. For example, when you take a paracetamol for your headache, a Panadol or whatever, that has a placebo effect as well. So real medicine also has a placebo effect, but it also has a real therapeutic effect. So, and the question then is, who decides about, somebody needs to be lied to in order to take a placebo. So who decides that it's okay to lie? Is it the doctor that decides? Is it the family that decides? Who's the person making the decision? And that raises all kinds of interesting questions. But in any case, all these alternatives, some of them cannot work, like homeopathy. Others can work. All you need to do is find the evidence that it works. For example, naturopathy is all about using plants and all kinds of natural products. It can work.
And many of our pharmaceuticals actually do come from plants in the first place.
Absolutely. I mean, aspirin, obviously, is the primary example, comes from willow bark. But there's lots of other examples of medication that comes from plants, or at least that plants were originally looked at, and then the active ingredient was perhaps synthesized or isolated and then refined. And the pharmaceutical industry actively looks for these kind of things because it makes their work a lot easier than to start from scratch.
Well, what about things like magnetic therapy?
Magnetic therapy, people go to an MRI and they have their magnets that are probably about 50,000 times, I think it is, stronger than fridge magnets.
Okay.
And they don't heal. They just do diagnosis, and you require very sensitive instruments to diagnose the things that the fine motions that they create in molecules inside the human body. Mm-hmm. Now, people put the equivalent of a fridge magnet on their knee, a sore knee or whatever, and they expect that would somehow heal them. Well, what about all these people who work at MRI? They're exposed to huge magnetic fields all the time, and they are not healed. They have the normal ailments that humans have. The reality is that the magnetic force is so weak, and the human body is so non-magnetic that it's unlikely to do anything at all, and indeed there's no evidence that it does. So, and that's actually very important. You asked about skepticism earlier. When we say that there's no evidence that something works, there's really two kinds of no evidence. One is there's no evidence because it hasn't been looked at yet. And the other is there's no evidence despite having looked at it very, very, very strongly for a very long time. So, for example, I think you mentioned naturopathy or aromatherapy. These things have been studied. There are studies, they have been looked at, and there's no evidence. That's not the same as something completely new that hasn't been looked at yet and is maybe plausible, but, so maybe sometime in the future will be found to be working.
What about some of the ancient treatments, for example, acupuncture?
Well, acupuncture, first of all, is not as ancient as people think it is. There's a new book, I can't remember the name at the moment, there's a new book that came out recently in the US that actually describes the history of acupuncture. It's only acupuncture in the modern sense is only a few hundred years old. But the acupuncture was a folk remedy. The there's no evidence at all that at any time it did anything more than provide some placebo effect at a time when scientific medicine hasn't worked. The thing about, if you look at China, where this is supposed to have originated, and even that is in doubt, but let's say modern acupuncture started in China a few hundred years ago. You look at China, the Chinese, as soon as Western medicine was available to them in the 1800s and obviously into the 19th and 20th century, they've moved in droves in that direction. And now what we call Chinese medicine is something that's only used by the poor. In the cities, they use Western medicine, and look what happened to their health in general and to their life expectancy. The life expectancy in China has risen significantly, and it's higher in the cities where they use Western medicine, scientific medicine, than it is in the villages and the towns where they use folk remedies because they can't afford to use Western medicine.
I guess there's a lot to be said for the fact that the human body does a lot of healing of itself anyway. So whether you're taking a homeopathic or aromatherapy type treatment, your body is very often healing itself regardless.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing is, you can also do nothing at all, and the same will happen. You know, there's always that joke about the flu goes away. You know, 7 days if you don't do anything, and a week if you take drugs. Echinacea or something.
Yeah.
That's actually true. You don't have to necessarily do something. Now, in some cases, there's no harm. If you talk about something like aromatherapy, the harm is only that your pocket is a little bit lighter when you leave. But there's other things where it could be a little bit more dangerous. For example, with homeopathy, if you take it for some pain or something, no problem at all. But I think many of your listeners might have heard of Gloria Sam, a little baby whose homeopath parents gave her homeopathy instead of treating her really bad eczema with pharmaceuticals, with proper proven medicine. And she died. She died from eczema, which is absolutely horrible. So, and there are obviously lots of cases where, with cancer, you know, when people choose to not treat cancer with chemo or radiation, but rather you choose to use homeopathy or some alternative medicine. There's a famous case in Perth, actually, of Penelope Dingle.
Yes, I'm aware of that one.
Perth woman who died after using homeopathy to treat her colorectal cancer. And she died. The progress of her disease was the same as an untreated disease. Yeah. And that's where the risk really lies. You're not actually doing what you're supposed to do. Now, it's not like she will have certainly lived if she used proper medication, but her chances would have been higher.
Yeah. Eran, look, we're running out of time. I'd love to speak to you again at some point in the next couple of weeks, if that's okay. Hopefully you're not going on holiday so we can talk to you.
I am actually going overseas.
Oh, no!
But first of all, I'm available 24 hours a day overseas as well, but also we have also other people who will be able to speak to you.
All right. Well, we may have a chat with some of those in the coming weeks because there's a few areas that I want to cover. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, Jason.
This is Ben Radford. I'm Deputy Editor of Skeptical Inquirer Science Magazine, author of 6 books, including Tracking Chupacabra, and you can find out more about me at benjaminradford.com.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Look, currently I'm just with the president of the Australian Skeptics, and I believe you organise a very expensive, it looks like it's some sort of oral... no, it's
a light entertainment.
Oh.
Light entertainment.
How did you get into Skeptics in the air?
Yeah, this is amazing. You've actually...
you like our fireworks display?
We're looking at it now, and it's actually a naked picture of Richard Saunders painted out with fireworks.
Yeah, that's why we're looking the other way. Yeah, obviously, for this conference, we wanted it to be a big event. So we organised a fireworks display. We arranged for Peter Foster to be arrested yesterday. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it.
Wow. This is amazing stuff. Just hear that. And now they're spelling out, look, it's Meryl Dorey's home address. It's amazing what's going on.
I can't comment on that.
Where do you want to?
No, well, I'm standing in my beautiful outdoor studio here, and earlier you heard some fireworks because obviously the revolution has started. Do you know who's starting it?
Who's starting the revolution?
Yeah, I couldn't tell. They have nice fireworks. Were they the right, the left, the Libertarian, the Sex Party? Who was starting that?
The Skeptics. The Skeptics, man. They're leading the revolution for science and reason.
And you're rocking the house with science and reason. Where?
I'm giving it a shot. I'm sort of working at the moment with a group called the Free Thought University Alliance. So what we're trying to do is sort of set up a network of all of the existing sort of skeptic and atheist and secular humanist rationalist campus groups that exist to try and help them work together to, I guess, sort of unify their movement, I guess, and coordinate national campaigns, because all of these groups have sort of sprung up completely independently of one another over between sort of 2007 and 2010, and basically what we wanted to do was create an organisation to help them out, to help them grow, and to help start up new clubs, because I think it's really important as skeptics and as atheists and as humanists and whatever to have a presence at university, because I think it's that point in a person's life where they're kind of trying to figure out their worldview or kind of figure out what they're passionate about. And I think as we have to be there as sort of one of the options that people can sort of take up to be active about or to be passionate about, as skepticism as a thing, if you know what I mean.
And Jason, where can people find you on the web or your group to get into a discussion with you?
Sure, well, the Free Thought University Alliance, you can go to freethoughtalliance.org.au. We've also on Twitter and Facebook. Some other groups I'm involved with, the Young Australian Skeptics in particular, trying to, introduce young people into the skeptical movement. So that's YoungAusSkeptics.com.
Hey, Jason, when I was down in Melbourne, I had a chat with the free thinkers down there at the Melbourne Uni at Skeptic Camp.
Yeah.
And that was a really great coming together of lots of groups. I was told in Melbourne that the scene doesn't seem as coherent in Melbourne as it is in Sydney. But from what I saw, there's lots of groups of a similar ilk working together very well in Melbourne. What do you think is the case?
No, I think they absolutely are working together. I mean, Skeptic Camp was a coalition between the Victorian Skeptics, the Melbourne Skeptics, the University of Melbourne Secular Society. They've got a common purpose, and they're actually quite happy to work together. So I think it's been really good down there.
What's the schism? Is there a schism? There's always a schism in something if you look hard enough. With skeptics, sometimes it can be skeptics that believe in God and ones that are atheists, although I don't see a lot of the evidence of that in Sydney, but certainly worldwide that is an issue.
Well, I think the schisms are starting to break down in Australia especially, and I think especially for young people, because I think young people don't care so much for labels, and I think that's particularly what's divided in Australia, the free thought community, is that we've sort of divided into the skeptic camp and the humanist camp and the atheist camp, where I think young people who are getting involved today, they don't really care so much about what you call yourself. It's mostly about what you believe in, what your values are, and what you're trying to promote. And I think young people especially can recognise the common values between all of the free thought groups, and groups like the Free Thought University Alliance, which is sort of an umbrella group for all of the university groups, and then new organisations like Reason Australia, which is an organisation which is bringing all of these groups together. I think it's showing that we're actually starting to break down those schisms.
And what's your challenge? What's your personal woo challenge? What is the unreasonableness that really annoys you?
Oh, good question.
It's something that occurs on an almost daily basis. Is there something? It might be something in the newspaper, something you walk past every day and you see an ad for, and you just lose all faith in the future of humanity.
Well, for me, I mean, what drives me, because what got me started in the whole skeptical atheist community was my experience when I went on exchange in the United States. I went to high school in the US, and I was the only kid in my class who believed in evolution, or knew that evolution was a scientific fact. And so that actually galvanized. I mean, I'd actually never studied biology before, and I was being told that the Earth was 6,000 years old and everything like that. So that kind of forced me to read about evolution and read about science and actually learn how to think critically for myself. And that's what bore my love for science and my love for the theory of evolution. And I read widely, Carl Sagan, Stephen Jay Gould, and Richard Dawkins. And
what was your starting point? Did you start with Demon Haunted World?
Yes, Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan and The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins. I think those are two essential starting points for a young person.
Look, now, you know, I've heard this, and I've said it on the show before, and I don't want to sound like I'm giving it a bad rap, but I bought Demon Haunted World at TAM Australia, and Carl Sagan writes beautifully, and he's certainly very knowledgeable, but I found it a very dry read. It was, I found it a bit dry. It wouldn't engage me. Where Michael Shermer's Why People Believe Weird Things, that was more my journey.
Yeah, fair call. Well, I think I was already accustomed...
I'm not saying Carl's wrong. I found it a bit dry.
I know what you mean. I can get what you mean, but I was already sort of accustomed to Carl Sagan's tone because I'd sort of watched Cosmos.
Skivvy wearers unite. I mean, you know, who's rocking the skivvy? You know, maybe before Steve Jobs, there was the Sagan skivvy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look, I like that little bit where he's in his spaceship going through everything, and it's a bit like, looking back now, it looks like it was a Doctor Who set. It's fantastic.
Corny. It's very corny, but it's so good.
Oh, look, it just says it all. And do you think there's been any show that has reached the zenith for that since? I mean, many great shows made, but are there other ones that you put in the same league as Cosmos?
Oh, look, I think lately Brian Cox's The Wonders of the Universe has sort of been up there. I mean, anything that David Attenborough does is magic, and I think there's no better argument for atheism or skepticism even than just learning biology and learning about nature itself. But I'm actually looking forward to the sort of the revamp of Cosmos that's going to be done by Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but apparently it's being reborn, and Neil deGrasse Tyson will be the presenter of it, so I'm pretty keen about that.
And I was asking you, what is the woo that annoys you the most there? And you were having a difficult time grabbing onto it, because is there just so much, or nothing really leaps out? It just all this unreasonableness is making you want to yell.
You know what, I think one of the things is because I did a Bachelor of Arts at the University of Melbourne, and the one thing that frustrated me more than anything was this whole postmodern argument that, truth is relative and everything like that. So that really pissed me off a lot. And I had a very fun time, but also frustrating time, debating people within the sort of liberal academic circles who were sort of arguing that science is just one way of knowing, as opposed to the best way of knowing, which I would argue it is.
But then again, if you are looking at a work of art, everyone who looks at it's going to have a different opinion. So I can see why that would hold water in some way.
I can see why it does, and I can see in our sort of post-colonial world how you can see that there was a lot of things that the West got wrong when it comes to sort of forcing values onto developing countries and everything like that. But I think it's misplaced to say that because colonialism was sort of misguided, that therefore science can't offer us anything.
So you'd also be wary of historical revisionism, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of something that really got me fired up back in my uni days.
Wow. Hey, you do debating on stage? You take these other fields on? Do you enjoy a good debate? You like getting up there and being the whip?
You know, I'm actually not really a confrontational kind of person. I actually... I've organised debates before, but I tend to like to sit back and just watch it happen. I'm not really one to engage in it. I think I'm more of someone who will go and talk on a multi-faith panel and try and bring everyone together into sort of one understanding, as opposed to fight them.
So you get to say, why can't we all just get along? Is that you?
Yeah, no, that's me. I'm up there preaching love and basically trying to explain that as human beings, no matter whether we're religious or atheists or anything, we do sort of share common values, and we should work together on important issues to sort of fix humanity and achieve social justice.
So you definitely agree with the don't be a dick approach?
I think I'd probably fall on the don't be a dick approach, but I am very sympathetic to it, and I do think that in any movement you need to have different ways of communicating what you believe in. And I think that being a dick is effective to some people, because everyone thinks certain things are going to resonate particularly well with some people as opposed to other people. And some people are going to be really persuaded by the likes of P.Z. Myers or Richard Dawkins, who are being dicks, or anything like that. But also people are going to be really On the other hand, you're going to be bringing people to the movement by having people who are more moderate and more accommodating. And so I can see that it's essential in a movement to have both sides.
Now, what's the next event where people can get on board with what you guys are doing in Victoria?
Well, one of the biggest things that occupies most of my time is organising the next Global Atheist Convention, which is going to be held in April 2012. We've managed to secure the likes of Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett and Christopher Hitchens, if his health will hold up. So the four horsemen of the so-called anti-apocalypse will be coming to Melbourne for the Global Atheist Convention. The tagline for that event is a celebration of reason. And I think part of that is to do with that we want to move beyond just atheism and sort of start to project what positive values as atheists we do believe in. And so we think that a celebration of reason is sort of part of what an atheist convention can be all about. So you can find out more information about that at atheistconvention.org.au. Tickets are on sale now and selling very fast.
Now, most people would agree that reason's a good thing, but it's not often a selling point. Hey, we're going to go out on Saturday night and we're going to get so reasonable. You don't usually hear that, do you?
No, you don't. But I think that part of what the new atheism is on about is about this return to Enlightenment values that actually, these are the sort of values what science was born out of, which modern medicine comes out of, which our understanding of human rights comes out of. Reason refers to the capacity that we have as human beings to discern what's right and wrong, and so I think it sort of comes down to something that's really essential when it comes to sort of, I guess, figuring out how we can fix some of the serious problems in the world, especially when you look at massive issues like climate change, even famine. We really need reasonable, evidence-based solutions to these massive problems.
You know, Jason, just on a personal level here, it just sort of clicked listening to you then why one of the reasons I like chatting and being a fellow traveller with the Skeptics. I'm not quite sure if I want to describe myself as a skeptic because I'm very susceptible to all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I love interviewing people that have really thought things through. Like that, and you get that in other areas of woo as well, but I just like it. You've obviously sat down and had a good think about this at a young age, inspired by being in that class maybe when you had to learn that the world's only 6,000 years old, which is news to me.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between the skeptics and people who are active about atheism or whatever, is that they've actually sat down and had a good think about it. Yeah. I think, and I like to be around other people who have also sat down and had a good think about it, because
but to be fair, a lot of theologians would probably sat down and reached a different conclusion.
Yeah.
But that's also why I like talking to them as well, because they've had to think about. They've got a different answer, but they've had to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, one anecdote I like to tell about that is the fact that when we were at the University of Melbourne, we started up a secular society. We actually had a really great relationship with the Christian Union there, because...
Yeah, I've noticed that. The same at Newcastle Uni, that's also the case as well, yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, we feel that they're just as much challenged by the fact that most young people these days are really apathetic about anything. And they were just really enthusiastic to find other young people who actually cared about these issues, like, does God exist? Is there a purpose to life? Is there an afterlife? Even though we have an opposite perspective or an opposite conclusion about the answers to those questions, they're actually really interested to find other people who they could engage with and debate with and talk with.
Well, I hope people get online and just do that with you down in Victoria.
Yeah, please do. Websites, web links, youngauskeptics.com, freethoughtalliance.org.au, atheistconvention.org.au. You can follow me on Twitter at JasonBall88 if you're keen.
That's cool. I think we better get inside because Lawrence Leung's coming on in a minute.
I love Lawrence Leung. I love his show. It's incredible. It changed my life.
I'm here with Maynard. Hello, Maynard.
Hang on, this is an ambush video. What is this, some kind of buzz marketing for the skeptics?
I guess it is. Now, how did you enjoy today?
It's been a very busy day, like most of these things.
Just by the way, ignore the fact that my fingers are around your neck, and just say really what you think about today.
It's been a very busy day. I had a pretty bad earache in the middle of the day, and I was like putting my head down during the TGA discussion.
I thought you were just falling asleep because it was after lunch.
I thought people would think he's drunk again or he's meditating, and you don't want to be meditating at a skeptics convention. Really, you're in for a lot of help.
You prefer to be drunk.
You prefer to be drunk. And look, I've been having a great chat. I was just having a chat to Jason, and I spend these days I don't know, I've just been talking for like 4 hours now, and that's how I don't really experience these events. I basically interview people about the event, so I'm not really at it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but today you did experience the event. I mean, you were at the event most of the day?
Yeah, but I was thinking, now where's that person going to be? I need to chat to them. So I do. Today I probably experienced a Skeptic event more than usual because I was actually able to have a look at it. If I go to TAM like I did with you guys in Sydney, I was always outside. I was never at the actual event because I was running around and catching people in the corridor. I know exactly
how that feels.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
I watch the TAM DVDs now because that's my opportunity to see all the talks from a year ago. So, out of today, what was your favourite talk?
Definitely the first one, our plastic surgeon who I came in halfway through.
Charm Williams.
Yes, just had a great chat to him then. Really nice guy, really great description of his career as a plastic surgeon and as a cosmetic surgeon, and a history of how it's changed a bit in over the last couple of years and where the sort of potentially shonky areas are and how he feels about advertising for cosmetic surgery. It's great to talk to a professional in an area that you know nothing about, which is pretty much everything I talk about, and find out a unique perspective that you never learned to learn.
Yeah. So, all in all, 1 to 10?
I'd have to give it an 8. I'd have to give my earache a 0, and I'm looking forward to...
Sorry, so where did we lose 2 marks?
Probably...
okay, actually, you don't have to say it.
No, there was no... I was looking forward to a Jerry Springer moment in the TGA roundtable discussion.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I left was because...
There was... Actually, just as you left, Rohan...
now you're just making it up.
Pulled Ken's hair.
Really? Yeah. Get out. Well, I thought a chair was going to be thrown. I thought, somebody might come in that was like someone's ex-lover or something like that. The door would burst open and fingers would be pointed.
It happened just as you left.
I thought that would be the case. But it was a really great day. And I like hanging out with skeptics because, look, I'm not particularly bright. I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box. I'm just generally very inquisitive about things because I just don't know much stuff. And I probably learn a lot of stuff that you already know.
Do you have anything bad to say about yourself?
Well, look, with the cosmetic surgeon, I would like to look 10 years younger, but the easiest way to do that is just to have a good lifestyle, have a good diet, and have exercise. And there's no chance of me doing any time that. So I'm actually looking forward to looking 10 years old in about a week.
Okay, well done. Thank you very much, Maynard.
This has been Maynard from the Poop Deck.
No, this has been Eran from the Poop Deck.
It's Eran from the Poop Deck.
We're interviewing Maynard.
I'm just some guy.
Dirty disbelievers.
Evil!
Oh, what a lie.
I can hear them all.
What's going on? Give me more, Mr. Announcer Guy.
On ABC Local Radio, digital radio, and online. Weekends at 6 o'clock.
The dirty disbelievers. The evil disbelievers. Evil!
I would like to know.
Take the red pill and the blue pill, I say.
I can hear them all.
We'll all listen.
This is serious.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Thank you again, Maynard. Man, that guy works hard. He works hard, and he's going to work even harder for us in TAM Las Vegas come July. What is it, June? July, I think it is. That will be so much fun to have Maynard on the spot there for you to meet. If you come to TAM, you can meet Maynard. Very exciting. Well, I think this is probably the very final show of the Skeptic Zone. For 2011, I think. Might be able to get one more done before New Year's. I don't know. Maybe New Year's Day, or maybe the 2nd. Who knows? It's holiday time. Don't worry about schedules right now, but there will be one coming up next week. What's going to be on it? Who knows? And don't forget, next year, 2012, is when the world ends. So get your kicks in now, folks. Well, until next week. Or next year. This is Richard Saunders, signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.